Hey guys, this video is going to be discussing the value of my Chinese-made RXB250R off-road motorcycle. And I'm going to compare it to some other bikes. I'm also going to talk about the actual cost that I have in my bike so that you can see the comparison, why I still say this is a very good value. Okay, so to start off, I bought mine in October of 2019. I paid less than $2,000, and that included shipping to my home. They arranged the shipping and dropped it off in a truck that had a lift gate. I did have to pay an extra $150 for the lift gate service, but sometimes that's negotiable. That my bike is a R model, they call it 250R, which doesn't have the they make a dual sport version that has lights and blinkers and able to drive on the street, but mine is not that. So starting with the cost, you can't for what I'm doing, you can't just take this bike and grab it and go. You have to go through it. You have to tighten everything up. And I had to make changes to make it more durable. Let's just call it what it is, durability. So my bike, as it sits today, in 2020, August of 2020, and excuse me, I'm going to be looking down at my notes. People are aware, and I've made other videos about it. My stock rims that came with this bike, mine happened to be steel. They have upgraded them to aluminum rims, but the reality of the problem is that the spokes themselves, as they come from the factory stock, are very thin and they have small nipples. So they won't really stand up very well to hard riding. And when I mean hard riding, I don't mean fire roads. I don't mean trail riding. A lot of people out west have, what I don't call hard riding conditions. They can go out in the desert and go flying around, and they don't really come across a lot. I'm talking about how I beat the hell out of this bike for you guys as a test. I mean, I've been using it on a motocross track. I have done some off-road. I've gone out on our type of terrain here in North Carolina is rock-covered, clay, very much elevation change. It's pretty hard. So I think why I'm trying to say this is, maybe in stock form, if you're going to go hard off-road, hard enduro, the changes that I'm talking about, you're going to have to make. So getting back to the rims, people know that I broke my spokes, bent the rims front and rear. So what I ended up doing was just buying Tusk spokes and rims from Rocky Mountain ATV. I did the work. I attached them to the stock hubs. So that cost for me was around $300. Labor is free for me. I do all my labor. So there's $300 there. I bought the rev box, a big gun rev box, which was $65. That helps with off throttle response and changes the timing. It gives you a little advance in the timing. Very, very good mod for $65. I bought Joe Henner's advanced timing flywheel key, which gives you another 4-degree advance on your timing, which helps you. The big thing about that is it helps you burn the fuel more efficiently. I don't know any horsepower numbers. I can just tell you, seat of the pants. Everybody's raving about it. I'm raving about it. You cannot believe how it changes the power curve for this bike. It's insane. I can't believe that they they let this bike be in such a state of detune. It's just, it could be so much more than it is just from the factory, but that simple little thing right there helps enormously. $20 for a flywheel advance key from Joe Henner. As it sits now, I've had different various states of tune in this bike, but I'm going to go with the current. So I also bought a cam, $150 for the cam. Again, Joe Henner Motorsports, custom design cam. He took about 3 or 4 different cams and came up with one that he feels gives it the best. He has a dyno, he has flow benches, he has all this kind of stuff to test it. I so far have liked how it did. It increases the rev, increases the torque throughout the range, but that's any cams will do that. But also peak horsepower and the rev from the cam is awesome in this particular setup in this bike. I went with the big bore, which gives me a 67 millimeter piston. Brings the bore from 223 to 240, 230. They're calling it a 240 kit. I think it's 233 actual cc's bore. I have Joe Henner's suspension modification. The rear mod helps with putting weight bias on the front so that your forks go straight up and down instead of being a little bit too forward and causing a little bit of bind. That was $150. And I'm going to throw this in there because I think it's a need. Not everybody does this and would include this in the price, but this bike is so inexpensive from the start. You gotta get some better meat on there, some better tires. I have some on order right now. Shinko's 540s, $100 for a set. So going over it again, rims, rev box, flywheel key, cam, big bore, tires, and suspension is an additional $1,000 on top of the $2,000. I paid less than $2,000. Currently, they're selling the bike for about $2,100. So you got like $3,100, $3,000 in that neighborhood to have a really good off-road motorcycle. I mean, it'll stand up to anything with that set of mods that I have told you about right now. So I'm going to do a little comparison right now too, so that you can understand where I'm coming from, why I think this is still an amazing value. The GPX, similar to this model, air-cooled overhead cam, 2-valve, their model costs $3,700. They do have the newer engine. Orion is also going to make a new engine. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but they have it makes about 22 horsepower, weighs about 7 pounds more than the Honda CRF 230 clone engine. So again, GPX 250, they call it the GPX FSE 250E, is $3,700. You have to pay for shipping. Orion includes shipping. GPX does not. So you have to pay an additional whatever it costs to get it shipped to you. Some of the other models that I was comparing this to in the beginning, I gave some consideration to purchasing that before I bought this one. The SSR 250R, these are water cooled. The next couple ones I'm going to rattle off here. SSR 250R, $4,000. They have dealerships, so you may not have to pay shipping, but they will have tax, whatever they call it, tax setup, but it'll be more than the $4,000 if you bought it brand spanking new. I know people are going to comment. Feel free to comment. I don't care. They can find it for less. Great, good on you. If you can, and that's what you want, then fine. A lot of people are having good things to say about the SSR 300. The cost on that one is $4,500. SSR 450s, I don't know anybody who has one, and I haven't seen anybody that has said negative about it. A couple of videos are floating around on YouTube. The SSR 450 goes for around $5,000. Now, more comparable to this bike, the direct comparisons, basically what they built to compete against. If you want the dual sport version, as a comparison, the CRF 250L sells for $5,500. These are 2020 prices, brand new out the door. If you go to a Honda dealership, you're going to pay setup. There's going to be more than the $5,500 suggested retail. A CRF 250F goes for $5,000, which is the next. They didn't make the CRF 230 anymore. They went to an F, which is a little bit bigger. Excuse me. But it's still a smaller frame than this, and it still has less suspension. Kawasaki has a KLX 230R, $5,000 approximately out the door with that one. They advertise $4,300, but I know someone who bought one of these. I actually kind of straight up drag raced him at the track where I go, and his engine's not as good as mine, nor is his suspension. So I'm gonna go back and talk about some of these. The CRF 250L is a great bike. I'm not gonna trash it. It's just an underpowered Honda, but it's 100% dedicated more to being on the road. It's not as good when you take it off road. But it is what it is, and it's a good bike, and it will definitely hold up, last, value. You can't question Honda's reputation for value and lasting and durability. The CRF 250F, the off-road version, it's just a newer version of the CRF 230. It's still small seat height. Lower seat height, not small. Lower seat height, less suspension travel. I think the suspension travels at like 9 or 10 inches. And the same with the KLX 230R, same scenario. The 230R does have EFI. That's kind of cool if you kind of like those things. But why I'm making these direct comparisons to the Orion RXB250 is the difference is, the major difference is you're getting a full-size bike with the Orion. It has 12 inches of suspension, upside down forks. You're not even getting those old conventional style. You're getting the upside down front forks, real true motocross style, off-road bike style. Let's maybe say that off-road style shock with the remote, the reservoir attached to the side. Full bike, full size. Mine is I've put mine up against some KTM 125SX guy had. Another guy has a KTM 250SX that I see on the regular at my track, and they park next to me a lot of times. And they were curious. They came over, so we sized up my bike. I want to say my seat height is about 3/4 of an inch to an inch less than theirs. They are a little bit taller than mine. But I recently did a mod, the suspension mod that I was telling you with through Joe Henner, which raises the shock about an inch, which also raises the back end of the bike a little bit. So it did raise the seat height, I want to say for me about a 1/2 inch. Some people have said an inch, but I also have to really crank down my preload. I'm a little bit heavier, so my preload, I had to crank it down to 90 millimeters. So I think that kind of maybe makes the back sit a little bit different. But anyways, it's a full-size frame. It's based on a KTM 125SX, 250SX from like 2014. So with the Orion, you're getting a full-size bike. The other bikes that I mentioned, with the exception of the GPX, is also a full-size bike. All those other ones are a little bit less. Even the SSRs are not quite the same height. Similar, they are on par, but a little bit different. A little bit less suspension travel. SSRs don't give you the full 11 and a half, 12 inches. They're actually, I think, 10 and a half on the fronts. The 300 may be different. The 300 is brand new, and I didn't go check the suspension specs on that one. But so anyways, getting back to the whole point of this thing, I had to spend $1,000, yes, to get this bike to where it is now, to be a really good, my Orion RXB250R, to get it to be a really good off-road bike. I use it for motocross, so I'm not gonna tell you guys buy one of these and make it a motocrosser. I'm doing that so that you guys can see the durability. And some people who know me and have followed me on my Facebook group, the Orion RXB250 owners group, and also my other YouTube videos. You may see that I actually did have one major, I'm gonna call it a failure. I won't even call it major. It's gonna happen, and it happened to me. I broke the frame. I got a crack down this center backbone of my frame and had to have it re-welded and re-gusseted. And I actually haven't had a chance to take it back out since, because of weather. This just recently happened, and I just recently got it back together with all the mods. But you'll see in future videos, I always share my information with people, and if I have any flaws, I tell you. So you'll know in the future if that becomes an issue. But I think we resolved the problems because I'm a heavy guy, 190 for this particular model of motorcycle, and the springs that it comes with, and we can't seem to source. So far, we haven't been able to source heavier springs for forks and shock. But I started in the beginning with that, knowing that they were light for me. So already you're starting with that problem. The geometry of the frame, with the shock being, without the mod that Joe Henner came up with, that raised the overall length of the shock to put more weight bias on the front, my forks were a little bit raked out, and they weren't traveling true straight up and down like they should, and that was causing a problem. So with my weight, the geometry problems, the suspension springs being light, I've changed fork oil and shock oil. And my riding, because the power was down a little bit, riding, not being able to clear all the jumps that I was trying to clear. I mean, I'm trying to clear them, but I was forcing the issue and coming up short and slapping is what I'm going to call it. I was landing short, rear wheel first, and slapping the front end down caused the issue with the frame to crack. It was a compounding issue, all those things. But 99% of that has now been resolved. I mean, I have fork spacers to decrease bottoming, and I changed the level of the fork oil in the forks. The frame is now true and straight, and it has gussets to actually keep the frame from going back and down, where that's how it got a crack. By stretching the frame in the down tubes, it went back and down. So Joe Henner came up with gussets to keep that from happening. I do have his new shock mod, which extends the length of the eye to eye of the shock, which puts more forward weight bias on the frame and therefore on the front forks, so that they get good suspension travel the way that they should, without any kind of binding. So all of these things help to keep this bike be an amazing off-road bike now and value. You can't get close to buying anything to start with. I mean, the things I just named off, $3,700 for a GPX, the same kind of bike, $4,000 for an SSR 250, $4,500 for an SSR 300, $5,000 for an SSR 450, a CRF 250L, $5,500, CRF 250F, $5,000, KLX 230R, let's call it $4,500, $5,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. Their price is a little bit hidden about how they add extra costs. So that's not doing any, I'm not throwing in like personalized stuff that people will do. You're going to put hand guards, grips, bars. I'm not throwing that in there. Everybody does that. I'm just talking about, getting it to a comparable rate, I guess, if you want to call it. You can do some of these things. You don't have to do all of them. I can't really speak so much for the off-road stuff. I mean, you can probably buy an Orion RXB250R, go through your bike, tighten up your spokes, maybe change your tires so you have better street tires. And you can probably run like that. Maybe I would throw in the flywheel key just to get the over rev. And I'm going to touch on one other thing here before I go. I know this is getting to be a long video. I hope you guys stay and watch till the end. Orion is switching engines. Just found that out not too long ago. They're going with the engine that comes in the GPX. It's its own entity. A lot of people were saying it was based on a Yamaha TTR 230 or TTR 250. It's not. Some people have come to me and explained to me that it's kind of its own monster. It will be 249 cc's, so it'll be a little bit bigger. It's going to have like a 71 or 72, I think it's 72 millimeter piston. It will make a little bit more horsepower than the Honda clone version, the Honda CRF 223 size engine. But it's 7 pounds heavier on a bike that's, unfortunately, these Orions, they are heavy. They're all steel. And a lot of the components are not very light. So that is a negative from day one. But the new bike will come with the new engine. And as of yet, because it's new, nobody's making cams. Nobody has a pipe. The pipe that comes with it will be non-cat, so you don't have to worry about that. It won't have a cat in the center that you'll have to gut out like some of the models are doing now. It's going to be, I want to say, someone said it's going to be like around 22 horsepower. The Honda clone one was 18. So you get a couple more horsepower, but you're adding 7 pounds of weight. And you have no tunability. Like, I think you can maybe use Joe Henner may have a flywheel key for that one too, an advanced flywheel key that will help a little bit. But you don't have, you don't have a big bore. You don't have, you just don't have any support. You don't have a cam yet. I think maybe one company makes a cam. I want to say it's over $300, and you can't even hardly get it if you can. Or when you can, it's over $300, and it's hard to get. And as far as getting your support for, your engine stuff, like getting gaskets and stuff, the only people you're going to be able to get it from is from Orion. Excuse me. They're only going to be carrying the parts for this new engine so far, so not talking you out of it. I just want you to be realistic about what to expect when that new engine comes out. It's not as, it's not all over the world like the Honda CRF 230 clone engine is. they're everywhere. You can get, you know, you want to take it apart, you can get a, you know, crane, cam, camshafts, big bores, all your gasket kits. It's very much similar to a Honda CRF 230, so a lot of their parts will actually work. So there you are. I'm just going to call it in. You know, I've got 25 minutes in here. Still think this Orion is an incredible value. No matter what you spend, it's on par, or, you know, with all the bikes that I named. A lot of them, it's even better than that. It's less expensive. Comparing it to, you know, a used Japanese bike, you can't touch one that's not at least 10 or 12 years old, maybe even more. I've looked it up at least in my area. I mean, maybe someone has some less expensive bikes in their area. You know, $2,500, $3,000. You know, you're getting a brand new bike. You know, that's the difference. It's brand spanking new. And even if you do all these up, and you say, well, Dave, you had to do all these upgrades. Yeah. What are you going to do if you buy a used Japanese bike? You have to rebuild it. I mean, 10 years on an old bike, you don't know what someone else has done to it. It's a motocrosser. People are going to trash them. That's how they ride. I mean, I'm not saying they trash them to be purposely bad on it, but that's what you're doing. You're riding it hard and putting it away wet. So you got quite a bit of years under, you know, anything comparable. You'd have to spend, you know, more. And even still, you know, what are you going to get with that? So I'm putting this out here as an option to you guys. You know, pick it up cheap, $2,000, brand spanking new. Even if you get the L model and you have to strip all the crap off of it, so what? You're still way thousands of dollars less than anything comparable, and you get a person. Then it becomes personalized. You know, you've done all this work. You've changed your gearing. You've, you know, in my case, handlebars, handguards, tires, you know, big bore kit, all these things that, you know, that make it better for you. It's personalized. So anyways, let's cut it off here. I hope you guys are having, you know, out there riding, having a good time. I hope a lot of people who see this are in my group and know it already. So, you know, I'm preaching kind of to the choir, but to the people who see this and think, you know, hey, maybe I'll pick up a GPX or pick up an Orion, I would encourage you to do it. KO is another one. KO is a brand that's out there that, yeah. So there you go. Y'all have a good one. Catch you next time. Bye.